Hi, my name is Clark Smith. I'm the winemaker for Winesmith, and I also wrote this book called Postmodern Winemaking that's done pretty well among wine lovers and winemakers. And I want to tell you about an innovation that I became aware of. I gotta say, I was kind of taught at UC Davis that California was the innovator and everything in Europe was just kind of stuck in the mud, and we were going to do all the great inventions. And then I went to CIME in Milan in 2011, and holy smoke, boy, is that ever not true. And in particular, what I saw uh, in this vast array was uh, auto fermentation. Now, it turns out in California, pretty much everybody just has standard tanks and they do whatever fermentation they're going to do manually. In Europe, that's no longer the case. There are dozens of tank manufacturers that make auto fermenters. There's a lot of reasons to do that. One of them is that you can mix the tank more regularly, even when you're asleep. Cuts down on labor, but it also keeps the temperature of the fermentation kind of constant. And so it doesn't make sulfides and other annoying flavors that happen when yeasts retool. And so in Europe, they kind of know I'm going to make, Amarone from that vineyard, and it's going to give me about 2.5 tons. And so I'm going to buy a tank, and I just make that wine in that fermenter. And so they don't need the flexibility that we have while we're just sort of fiddling around with what we want to make and how many tons and so forth. And uh, so I came across, I'm just going to show you some fermenters from just one producer, Albrigi, wonderful manufacturer. And this one here has a disc in it that has glycol in it, and it just rotates the disc, and that's for punching down Amarone and mixing it because it's very thick. And then here's one where we drop these blades down there and they get mixed. This is a rotary fermenter that goes around. This one here works like a coffee percolator. It uses the CO2 gas to push the wine up through this tube, and then it showers down on the cap. This is another one that inserts a device inside the tank, and this one here, it's designed to drain all the juice out so that the cap falls and is broken up by all of these bars in here. And then you do a rack and return, and that's an interesting way to mix the tank. So all kinds of innovations that we just never see in California because we're actually quite backward. However, here's Albrigi's website, and they have dozens of these different designs. But when you go down to a small volume, they got nothing. And so along comes Vijay Singh, and he started a little winery in New Jersey, and he looked at the way we were doing things, and he said, "Well, this is just silly." And he had made his fortune as a biochemical engineer with single-use plastics, and so he invented the GOfermentor. I'm going to show you two of them, a big one and a little one. This here handles about 3/4 of a ton, and it has, I'm going to show you how it works, but it basically will mix the tank as frequently as you like. I have two of these, and I generally run them to mix about every 4 hours, and that's really resulted in some wonderful wines. It has a single-use disposable bio bag that breaks down and is very inexpensive. So now we got no punch down labor. There's no water use at all except for the crusher. You got to clean the crusher, but that's it. You get no cross contamination because you're going into a sterile bag, and you can adjust the punching cycle, as I said. And then, and this is the best part, is at the end of the fermentation, it will press out the juice automatically, so there's no loading of an independent press. And boy, I love the way the wines come out. They have a rich, soft tannin structure. Really interesting way to go. I even have one French wine consultant who has a little chateau with a couple of tons of grapes that he'll load up his GOfermentors, and then he has to go down to Argentina for 2 weeks to consult down there. And when he comes back, the wine's all done. And so I'm just really in love with this thing. It also knocks down for storage, takes up very little room in the winery in the off season. So here's how it works. You've got the chamber here that has got the must in it, and there's a vent. And then over here is an air blower that will inflate this bag and mix the other one. And then when you go to press, the airbag will press all the juice out of here through this perforated tube to a clean wine collection. So let's look at a couple of cartoons about how that works. Here's the fermentation taking place. Now the air is coming in and it's breaking up that cap and then deflating so that the cap falls apart and is nice and soaked. And then it'll sit there and it collects CO2, and then that CO2 is driven out by the action of the bladder, and that can happen as frequently as you like while you sleep or go to Argentina. So then when we're ready to press,
So here's a really cute schematic that shows you how it works. See there at the bottom, the pump runs, the free wine comes out, then the pumice gets squashed by the second bag until it's pretty much dry. And then you just lift the dry pumice bag out of there and all the free wine was collected in the collection vessel. Easy.
that was VJ, who's the inventor of this wonderful system. This is what it costs. Those liners are $100. So $100 per fermentation. Everything else you use again and again. There is a $600 wand that goes underneath in case you need refrigeration. I make reds in this thing, and I want them to get as warm as possible because it's only 3/4 of a ton. But there is this cooling plate if you choose to go that way. Now here is a GOfermentor Junior. This does 5 to 8 gallons, and so it's great for home winemakers. And I use it for research lots. Holds about 1 to 200 pounds of fruit. The whole thing costs $600 plus the liner, and I actually made a Petit Verdot in my office on a white shag carpet without spilling a drop. So this is kind of how the action works. It's slightly different. It comes in from the sides and punches. He calls it punching up instead of punching down, and then deflating. So it goes back and forth. Then when you go to press, it just presses out. Now here we're showing that you can use it to press white grapes. Of course, you don't have to mix them during fermentation. They mix themselves, but it is a great way to avoid having to buy a press to press your whites. This is VJ himself over there in New Jersey, and his wife and winemaker and certified sommelier Mira. They have a winery called Sky Acres in New Jersey, and they win lots and lots of medals because their wines are really good and sulfite free. And that's my story. This is my winemaking 411 site where you can go. I'm plugging my fundamentals of modern wine chemistry here, so you can just click there, and it'll take you to a course that basically boils down a 4-year enology degree into a weekend, and it's online, so you can do it at your own pace in your underwear. I put about almost 5,000 winemakers through it over the course of the last 40 years. That's my plug, and I strongly urge you to visit GOfermentor and check out all our interesting innovations. I've only just talked to you about one. They got lots of other cool stuff too.